America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let me thank everyone for coming this morning. We're going to have to move some things around on the agenda. Can you hear me? Have to move some things around the agenda because the mayor and I have to leave probably about 9:30, I guess, to get to a press conference with the governor this morning. Said at that time I'll turn the meeting over to the vice chair. So when we get through approving the minutes, I'll tell you what we want to move around. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from? Motion to approve the minutes from February 3rd. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. The motion is adopted. We also have to approve the minutes from the February
Motion.
7th special meeting. As a motion, is there a second? Second. The motion is second to approve the February 7th, 2020 minutes. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, let me know by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, likewise. Motion is adopted. What we're going to do this morning is we're going to move, if there's no objection, move the General Counsel's report after the HART board appointments. If there's no objection to that, and then we're going to move on the action item. We're going to move Resolution R 2020-0308, dealing with the authorization to pass, adopt, and ratify the labor contract right after the General Counsel report. Is there any objection to that? No objection. Thank you. Public input on the agenda items. Any public input on agenda items? Okay. We have 5 people this morning. You have 3 minutes. Letitia Jones.
Good morning, Chair, Board. Letitia Jones, ATU 1593, also a paratransit driver for HART. And I know you guys will be looking at the bargaining agreement contract this morning. I'm just asking you guys to take a look at it and really look at the 600-plus employees that will be affected by your vote. I'm also asking you to look at the retro. We've been without a contract since 2018. And yeah, we currently negotiated a 9-month retro. And all this is based on the Supreme Court and the raises. I'm asking you to look at what we've been dealing with since 2018 without a raise. And when y'all get ready to make a decision, I want you to think about the impact of the lives of 600-plus employees that are relying on you guys. I do thank you for your time and the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ismael Rivera.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, guests, members of this board. On behalf of the ATU International, and I am here in support of brothers and sisters who are affected at the moment. We've been without a contract since 2018, and as our sister Jones stated before, these men and women work very, very hard, getting up early in the morning to transport people to and from doctors' appointments and wherever they may be. We ask, all we have is an ask, is that you really consider this moving forward. Take a look at the retro and the hard work that these men and women have been doing under these conditions, from fatalities and for whatever may be coming in the future. We are really looking to work together, have a better working relationship with the authority, and we just want to move forward, get this ratified so that we can move on to bigger and better things. Thank you for the opportunity to address this board.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Stephen Simon.
Good morning, Chair, Board, and guests. I'm Steve Simon. I'm the president of ATU Local 1464 with the City of Tampa employees, and also brother union to ATU Local 1593 here in HART. I'd like to take a moment to reflect on something that our great Mayor Casta has recently done and said, which was bringing the minimum wage of the employees of the City of Tampa to $15 an hour, and she mentioned that it was the right thing to do. I'd like to piggyback on that. statement in regards to the employees here at HART. A lot of times employers forget that it is due to the employees' work that they put in for the company, that actually makes for a successful business. And so I would like for you to do the right thing on behalf of the employees. We may keep the city of Tampa running, but the partnership between HART and ATU 1593 moves Tampa. Thank you.
Thank you. Rick Homans?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Rick Homans. I'm the CEO of the Tampa Bay Partnership, and I come before you this morning on behalf of our members to provide some very brief thoughts regarding your upcoming search for a new CEO. First of all, we applaud your decisive action that you took to dismiss your most recent CEO. The Carlton Fields report identified so many issues of poor judgment and serious mistakes, and we believe you had no choice but to take the action that you did. Now, as you begin this process again, the stakes are even higher. And because of this, we ask you to set the bar equally high in your search. We believe that the leader you select must have experience as the CEO of a transit agency that is at least as large as HART in both budget and employees. We must be confident that we will succeed in dramatically expanding HART's budget, either through a favorable Supreme Court ruling or a successful referendum attempt in November, and hire a leader who can responsibly and effectively deploy those new resources. With that new funding, HART will be able to expand its existing bus service and lead the way on a number of new and complex transit projects that may include the expanded streetcar, a new arterial BRT project from downtown to USF, purchasing or leasing CSX lines to initiate rail service from downtown to USF and perhaps to other parts of Tampa Bay, and developing multiple intermodal stations to link local and regional transit projects, which will ultimately offer our residents a more effective transit system to better connect them to jobs, healthcare, and education. HART's new leader will need to hit the ground running with the knowledge and experience to navigate these complex projects, tap the local, state, and federal funds available, and build the public-private partnerships that will be required. As you establish the baseline qualifications for your search, we respectfully request that you seek a leader who has experience in all of these areas, an experienced transit agency CEO who can bring those talents here to move HART forward into an exciting new era. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Adam Walsler?
Hello, Mr. Chairman and Board. I'm Adam Walser. I'm an investigative reporter with ABC Action News. I have made a repeated request to interview your CEO, Ms. Carolyn House Stewart, and yourself, Mr. Miller, and I understand I've been denied the interview by the interim CEO, and you have indicated that you're too busy, and I understand that a coronavirus issue has come up and you're required to be there, but just wanted to put my questions on the record because we're running out of time with our deadline to discuss some of the issues we've been looking at. We not only reviewed Mr. Limmer's spending and found, obviously, as the Carlton Fields report, that there were some reckless things going on there, but we also looked back at, over the past 5 years, at all the P card transactions that were listed online as part of HART's transparency report, and we found a pattern of executives going and staying at lots of fancy hotels at these conferences, places like the Four Seasons, the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, and the Waldorf Hotel, where some of the room nights were about $600 each. We found this added up to close to $500,000 in spending over the years that were on there on the P card transactions. And we just think that we also should take a look at the fact that this is taxpayer money. There was a safety meeting at Jackson's Bistro in which $2,500 was spent on food and then $600 was spent on flowers. It would appear, just looking at this from the outside, that was an unnecessary use of taxpayers' money. And I would welcome your comments, since obviously, sir, you're too busy to do an interview today, or maybe we could set up another time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're going to move now to welcome our newest member to the board, City Councilman Chairman Luis Vieira. You want to read all this?
Oh, no.
Okay. I'm going to read some of it. We want to welcome you. Councilman Vieira was raised in North Tampa, Temple Terrace area as a 2000 graduate of the University of South Florida and a 2003 graduate of Stetson Law School. He was admitted to the Florida Bar in 2003. He is an active member of his local community. He's a former chairman of the Hillsborough County Bar Association Diversity Committee and a former chair of the City of Tampa Civil Service Board. He's the founder, the president of Lawyers Autism Awareness Foundation, and previously served on the board of the Tampa Bay Best Buddies, an organization which assists and advocates for persons with special needs and developmental disabilities. He's also the incoming president of Tampa Hispanic Bar Association and a member of the George Edgecombe Bar Association. I'm not going to go any further than that. Chairman, welcome. Have any few words you want to say?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thank the mayor for the appointment, and I just look forward to working with everyone here and what is a really exciting time for transportation here in the Hillsborough County and Tampa area. So just looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Welcome aboard. Welcome. Okay, next on our agenda item is the HART board appointments. We have appointments to 4 boards that need to be elected today to serve on those boards. They are the HART ADA Accessibility Committee, the Tampa Historic Streetcar Board, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and the Transportation Disadvantaged Coordinating Board. There are vacancies on there. I guess the first one we need to take up is the HART ADA Accessibility Committee. I see Commissioner Smith showed an interest in serving on that board. Am I correct?
Which board is that?
The HART ADA Accessibility Committee?
Yes.
We have to elect persons to this board. Does anyone want to nominate Commissioners? There's a nomination for Commissioner Smith to serve on that board. Is there any other nominations?
I nominate Luis Vieira.
A nomination for Luis Vieira to serve on the board. Is there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Nominations closed on the said 2 names of Commissioner Smith and Councilman Luis Vieira. We'll take Commissioner Smith first. All those in favor of Commissioner Smith, please raise your hand. All those in favor of Councilman Vieira? Wait. Commissioner Smith, you voted Councilman Vieira.
Oh, it's one. Is it?
It's only one position.
If I may, Mr.
It's only one position.
Oh, if I may, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I would defer to Commissioner Smith. She's been on here longer.
Okay.
So I would respectfully decline that.
Okay.
Since there's only one.
Commissioner, Councilman Vieira declines. I'm sorry, it's only one position.
I'm sorry, I did not understand that, but I know that you, Councilman Vieira has done a lot of work with that community, and if you are willing to serve there, I'd be happy to be the alternate. Isn't there an alternate?
It's the
for
alternate
AD?
position.
There is an alternate position.
And you could step in there and I'll be the alternate if you prefer.
Okay, I would defer to you as you've been on the board. I don't want to, if you're amenable with that, I would be as well.
Mr.
All
Smith?
right, let's do that.
Mr. Chairman, I believe Ms. Smith is the primary, and aren't you filling in the alternate? on
I'm
one?
sorry, you're absolutely right.
That's
So
correct.
she's already the primary.
You're already the
Is that what
primary, and we're looking for an alternate.
All right, we'll do that. I'll be the primary and.
There you go.
Is there any
Be the
objection?
alternate.
I'm
It's the
accepting.
alternate
yeah.
position.
Second.
There's a nomination for Mr. Vieira to serve as alternate. Is there a second?
Second.
I mean, is there any other nomination? Any other, early this morning. Any other nominations? Nomination closed on the said name. Mr. Vieira, you'll serve as alternate to the committee.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Now, I'll get this right this time. We're looking for a current 3rd member to serve on the Tampa Historic Streetcar Board. We already have Mr. Harden and Mr. Mechanic. We have to have a 3rd person to fill that position. Is there a nomination for 3rd person to serve on the Historic Streetcar Board?
I nominate Kim Overman to fill the position and Pat Kemp to fill the alternate position.
Is there a second to those?
Second.
Is there any other nominations? Any other nominations?
I
Commissioner
decline.
Oakland? You decline? Okay.
We can't, our board meetings run into it, and historically I've not been able to attend. It's not fair to the rest of the board that I'm unable to attend on a regular basis, which is why I withdrew my, not only membership, but also as an alternate.
Okay. Commissioner Overman declines the,
I'll nominate Commissioner Kemp for the primary position and Mr. Vieira for the alternate.
there's a nomination for Commissioner Kemp for the primary position and Councilman Vieira for the alternate. Is there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Nominations closed and said two names. So Commissioner Kemp will serve as a member, a current member, and Councilman Vieira will serve as an alternate. The other one we have is a position for the Transportation Disadvantage Coordinating Board. Is there a nomination? Anyone want to serve on that?
I nominate Commissioner Smith.
Commissioner Smith has been nominated to serve on the Transportation Disadvantage Coordinating Board. Is there any further nominations? Any further nominations? Any further nominations? Seeing none, Commissioner Smith. And we have the Metropolitan Planning Organization Board. Mr. McKennick, you no longer wants to serve on that board?
Correct.
Is there a nomination for someone to serve on the MPL board? Commissioner Kemp? I can't hear you there.
I move Mr. Hart.
Mr. Hart has been nominated. Is there any further nominations? Any further nominations? Is there any further nominations? Nominations closed on the said name. Mr. Harden, you're on the MPO board.
Congratulations.
Now, to be accurate, I need to have a motion to ratify the nomination, the election of those. There's a motion to ratify. Second. All those in favor, let me know by saying aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. Motion is adopted. For those of you that weren't here, we're going to move the agenda around a little bit. We're now going to bring up the General Counsel's report. Mr. Smith.
Yes, good morning. You have all received numerous missives from me over the last week or two explaining some of the background to what we're going to discuss. If you look at your agenda item, page 2, where it talks about council report, 3 of those items are actually interrelated. The first 2 are 2 alternative resolutions. One is a resolution to terminate the CEO, and it follows essentially the analysis and the process that you used when you met February 7th. As you recall, in the explanation I provided you, February 7th is more correctly viewed as a continuation of the February 3rd hearing, not a special meeting. But in order to avoid any ambiguity, and because the employment agreement calls for a disposition by resolution, I've created that resolution. It is effective as of May 2nd if you choose to go that route. So the termination would be effective May 2nd, not February 7th. I can explain the background, but I think all of you have had an opportunity to read that and probably know it. The alternative, so you have to really choose one or the other. The alternative is to enter into a settlement agreement with Mr. Limmer. In terms of the settlement agreement, by the way, just so you know, the employment agreement specifically says, if terminated for cause, HART shall have no further obligation other than as specifically provided herein. And there's a description of things that HART must provide compensation through the date of termination, must provide deferred compensation through the date of termination, must provide payment of the various sick and leave days and chief days, et cetera, that are available for those generally in HART. And based upon that analysis, I gave you a comparison of what those numbers came out to. And the settlement proposal is essentially this, that Mr. Limmer would not be terminated for cause. He would be allowed to resign effective April 1, so that his compensation and deferred comp would be paid through that date. He would receive all of the paid days, which roughly is around 36,000. We ended up using a number of 40,000 to settle everything. That includes any claims they may have had for attorney's fees, any claims they may have had for severance, any claims they may have had for anything else. So the settlement is a, quote, good settlement from a litigation standpoint. I am an attorney, and Cindy Townsend was the attorney we hired for outside counsel. She thinks this is an excellent settlement in light of the fact that you could litigate for several years. This could hang over HART for an extended period of time. It could be very costly. Litigation could cost north of $100,000, $200,000, $250,000, depending upon how it's litigated. So from a settlement standpoint, I understand there's other considerations, which is not for a lawyer to opine about, but from a settlement standpoint, I'm recommending the settlement as the best use of HART dollars in terms of total expenditures and resolution of the difficult times which we've all been through. Just so to make sure it's on the record, we've talked about resignation. By the way, by virtue of resigning April 1, the intent there, to be candid, was he wanted to make sure he had coverage, health insurance coverage for his family through the end of April. So he had time to make alternative arrangements. There's also no admission of liability on either side. Each side pays their own attorney's fees. They have no claim for attorney's fees. It will be a final and complete resolution of all matters. Outside Labor Council will work with Limmer's Council in order to finalize the documentation. We typically have mutual releases, covenants not to sue, things of that nature, which need to be finalized. But the material terms of the settlement, if you choose to go that route, are covered. So you've got two options. But one thing I found out this morning, I want to make sure you know, there is an obligation on the part of Krauthammer and Associates to provide a placement in the event the CEO does not make it for a year. Obviously, if you terminate for cause, he has not made it for a year, so that's another factor to throw into the calculus. However, I also know that you've reviewed the whistleblower report, you've reviewed the investigation. It may not be this board's preference to go with Krauthammer, no matter what the circumstances are, and of course, there's also situations that you may not even go through an executive search. That whole issue should be postponed. I think it's too much to go into right now. Staff is working on getting alternatives together for you, both internal and external, so you'll have an idea can address that more comprehensively. But I wanted to make sure you knew that economic component because it was not in my letter to you, because I did not know that. So essentially what I'm asking for you to do today is either move to approve the resolution terminating Mr. Limmer, or move to approve the resolution agreeing to a settlement of the litigation.
Mr. Harden, you recognize.
I make a motion that we accept and move to approve the settlement.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the settlement. What's that settlement again, Mr. Smith?
The settlement is that in lieu of termination, Mr. Limmer will resign effective at April 6th at the board meeting when the board signs the resolution. He'll be paid through that date. He and his family will receive coverage to the end of April. He will receive a total of $40,000 that will cover all of the payments that are due to him under the employment agreement. Neither side admits liability. Each side pays their own attorney's fees. We'll enter into subsequent documents commemorating the mutual releases and covenants not to sue.
Let me be ever mindful, folks, that during this entire investigation, and specifically after Mr. Limmer had the opportunity to review what Carlton Fields came up with, he could have, at that particular point in time, started a process of trying to do what we're talking about doing now. He did not do that. He waited until this board, on an 11-to-1 vote, terminated him with cause. Now he wants to come back and do something completely different, which I totally oppose. So I'll be voting against the motion. Commissioner Kemp, you recognize.
Thank you. I agree. I'm totally opposed. Excuse me. I think this sends a wrong message to anyone else who I think abuses the board here, the trust of this community that we put in Mr. Limmer. I also, when you had stated that just now, you said April 6th instead of April 1st, just like to point out. The other thing that I feel, even over this, I was kind of taken aback to find out that his phone was not turned in at the beginning when he was suspended, and that since then, he turned it back in with a military swipe, as I heard, so that all the information, which was part of our public record, and we should have had access to, that has been turned in since this happened. We did 11-to-1 vote. We paid $100,000 for an investigation. I couldn't agree more. This should have been done prior to this, not had put this board, this community, this organization through this. And I am opposed and will vote, I'll approve a termination, but I would vote against a settlement.
Any other discussion? Mr. Knight, you recognize.
Good morning, Chair.
Push your microphone on.
Good morning, Chair. Again, like I said, I thought in the beginning that it was too harsh. I agree with my Mr. Harding that, to move towards settlement, and that's where I stand. That's where I'll stay.
Mr. Harden, you recognize.
Yes, just quickly, I don't disagree with any of the facts that are stated here, but I just am drawing a different conclusion that I think it's financially in the best interest of HART to settle it.
Councilman Schuster, you recognize.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with the premise that he was terminated for cause. It sends a clear message to the taxpayers and to everybody involved that we don't tolerate this type of activity. However, $4,000 potential differential between what we're going to spend and our maximum exposure already, we could wipe that out with just finding an attorney to read the summons. And as Mr. Smith had said, it could be $100,000. We've already spent $100,000 to investigate. Okay, we had to do that, that's fine. So we're already negative $96,000. We also have a fiduciary responsibility to limit our loss as we go forward. And right now, our loss is at about $4,000 maximum, where it could be considerably more depending upon how long this type of litigation drags out. I agree with sending out the clear message, but we need to stop the bleeding financially as we stand, especially in light of the sales tax issue. I hate the thought of it, but I'm leaning towards supporting the settlement strictly financial reasons, but let the world know that this can never, ever be tolerated again.
Commissioner Smith, you recognize.
Thank you. Did we get any advice from the labor attorney that we had put on retainer for this?
Yes, she participated in all of the discussions with Mr. Limmer's counsel. She thought it was an outstanding resolution from a litigation standpoint. Again, it's a litigation analysis I'm providing as counsel, and yes, it was a very good deal from that standpoint.
Thank you.
Mr. McLean, you recognize.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I too agree with your thoughts, Chair. And then this was an egregious kind of situation. However, I also agree with the comments I've heard here too. I think two things. Number one, I think cost prohibitive. I think the cost will drive this decision a little bit more than we think. I also think by prolonging this effort, it puts a cloud over top of this organization, and I'd like to see that cloud lifted. What has happened here has happened. I think the discussions we've had within this board and also that committee were clear and decisive. I think that sent a note to everybody out there in the community. I too would agree that we kind of limit this now and do the settlement. So,
is there any further discussion? Councilman Lewis, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree in the sense that what Mr. Limmer apparently did was egregious, and and that a message should be sent, but I think the message already has been sent through his termination. I think this settlement stops our exposure. It stops the bleeding. Again, it's something that's imperfect, but unfortunately, the exposure that exists out there for this board and for taxpayers is something that we should, in my opinion, respectfully keep in mind in making this decision.
Ms. Williams, you recognize.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I am very concerned with the amount that it will cost us if we were to litigate any much further. $4,000 does appear to be a small amount in retrospect, and I do agree that he should have been terminated with cause. So with that, I will be voting to take the settlement. Thank you.
Okay. Is there further discussion? We have a motion and a second to reach a settlement with Mr. Limmer. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposed likewise, no. Motion's adopted. Mr. Smith.
I have nothing further other than they did have an item on my packet to deal with executive recruitment. I think you need to have a more considered deliberation in that regard. So I recommend we at least postpone that to the next meeting or beyond. Let the staff provide you some summaries of your options.
Okay. We'll do that at the next meeting, but let me ask this question, folks. Is there any objection to allowing Ms. Carolyn House Stewart to continue to serve in the interim position until we reach a determination as to what we're going to do?
No.
No objection.
No objection? No objection? Okay, you must continue, my dear.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank
Okay, we're now going to move the.
I just have a question about what, that, so are you saying we're just going to reserve in terms of the interim or long-term? Is that what we just,
I think what was decided is because you're not going to take up executive recruitment today, you needed to make sure you had ratified the ability of Ms. Stewart to continue to serve in the interim capacity at least. That's what I thought was just done.
Yes.
okay.
Are you done, Commissioner Kemp?
I think so. So this is maybe next month that we could be taking this up.
That's for the board to decide. I spoke with staff this morning. Will we be ready for next month? Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Overman, you recognize?
Thank you. I do want to say, I think that Ms. Stewart is doing an excellent job, but she's doing two jobs. So I am pleased to hear that we will bring it up possibly at the next meeting in order to maybe not actually completely exhaust a fabulous woman who's doing the best job she can. But, you know, Ms. Stewart has been our legal counsel in risk management. That is an important part of what HART does for its procurement and other issues. So I strongly recommend that we stay on task and make sure that we do not put her in a position, even though she's doing an excellent job in leadership, to take on more than one person should do within an organization. And I thank you for the work that you're doing. I just want to make sure we don't kill you in the process. So thank you.
To this board, I had a conversation with Ms. House Stewart concerning those particulars, that she's doing two jobs, and wanted to see what we could do about that. But that she's doing a fantastic job, excellent job. But she advised me that at this particular point in time, if we were just to put her in the executive director position and not have her doing the legal side of it, we'd have to bring a temporary in, and she didn't think that was the right thing to do at this particular point in time. So she has agreed to continue to do both of those. Now, that could very well change when we come back in April, but I don't know if she's doing both of them, but she's doing an excellent job at both of them at this particular point in time. So April, we may want to consider not doing that. Okay? All right. If there's any objection to moving to the action, approve the action item resolution 2020-0308, the authorization to pass and adopt and ratify the labor contract with Amalgamated Transit Union.
Second.
There's a motion to bring that up at this particular point in time. All those in favor, let them know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise, motion is adopted. Who's handling this?
Mr. Greg Bracken.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members. We just wanted to bring a little clarity to some of the things that happened during this contract and negotiations portion. It has been a long process. It's been a 17-month process. And this will cover, as you see on the header there, October 1st of 18 through September 30th of 2021. It was a little unusual, but both sides were kind of waiting for the referendum to pass as well. So that was some of the mitigating issues that lengthened it out a little bit for us. The contract covers for about 630 employees that are represented in both the operations and the maintenance departments. It came to an agreement on January the 12th of 2020. Amalgamated Transit Union took it to a ratification vote on February the 6th, and it was overwhelmingly approved, 358 to 102. And the board approval represents the next step in this process. Right up front, without the ratification of the referendum, there will be a 3% ratification bonus, basically, to go across the board to all the ATU members. We attempted to address our wages, as previously was mentioned by the speakers earlier. We thought that the minimum wage had to be brought up to be competitive. Most of our positions are CDL holders, which is very competitive in our area. And we made sure that we addressed those particularly. So we addressed those on both the maintenance side and the operation side of the house. There was some enhanced benefit package increases as well, and some labor relation enhancements. So we have created some very proactive committees Will involve both the HART and the ATU representatives on an equal basis. We've done safety and we've done an operations, and we hopefully that the labor negotiations part will help us continue in this efforts that we put forward during this negotiations to improve our enhancement of our relationship with the union members. This is just a quick and dirty comparison to the current wages to the new proposed wages. And as you can see, the biggest one for us is the bus operators. They have the most numbers in our bargaining unit. And we went from a beginning wage of $13.27 to $22.90 to the new proposed, which will be $15.25 to $25.99. These wages will make us competitive, and we are in the same realm of other transit agencies in our arena in the area. So we are working to make sure that we can recruit and retain competent and quality employees as we move forward. The financial investment, we have worked very hard to bring the ATU bargaining unit up to the non-bargaining benefit packages. There was a difference in what both groups got previously. So that was one of the things that we worked very hard to do, was bring it up to a parity level with the rest of the HART employees. Dental coverage was one. In the maintenance side of the house, tool allowances. Tools are very expensive for the mechanics, and they do require some specialized tools. HART provides the big dollar items, but the mechanics do have a tool box that they're required to keep up to date, and that was just to keep it up with the current cost of their tool replacement. Uniform vouchers, we raised it $25, and that was basically a cost of the materials. We require our bus operators to be in exact uniform, and our mechanics are provided uniforms in the back. 2 additional paid holidays that will bring them up to 12 holidays paid, and that's exactly as the non-bargaining group receives as well. Increased annual leave accumulation for 20 or more years, and that too makes it mirror what the non-bargaining is receiving. An increased company match for the employees 457 went up 0.5%. So theirs is just a little bit more than the rest of the company, and at this point. Change the cash out for sick time policy, allow them to resign at least 10 years to cash out 50%, and their sick time with at least 20 years to cash out at 100%. And that is consistent with the non-bargaining policy as well. And change the cash out of vacation to allow cash out excessive hours in certain situations. And that goes by the hours that they work, and they have to have so many in the bank and all that, and that is too consistent with the non-bargaining side. Financial overview, the financial investment of specific job classifications, certified operator instructors. These are the ones that go out and train our operators out on the routes, their driving skills, how to deal with customers and all that. We did do a substantial increase on that because we believe that QT, we call it a QTI, Qualified Training Instructor, is very critical to the onboarding process of our new employees, and we want to make sure that we get the right and proper training to them as they come on board. Maintenance department shift, there's a couple here, 25 cents an hour for nights, 25 for evenings, and then it's 50 cents per hour for the nights. So that's a difference for us. We've never done a pay differential for the nighttime hours, but once again, we're trying to be competitive with our labor market in the area. CNG, as we move to a more robust CNG fleet, it does require a lot of certifications of the tanks and stuff, especially after every single accident. The vehicle is required to be brought in and inspected before it can go back into service. So we have been added an incentive for the technicians to be certified to be the CNG inspectors, and hopefully that'll expedite the return back into service of those. Maintenance department lead persons, that went from $1.65 to $2 Each shift actually has a lead that they can go to in lieu of the supervisor, and they kind of work in tandem to make sure that the jobs are completed on a timely basis. And then the newest one, we had some incentives previously for attendance and stuff, and we kind of combine these, and we're trying to put a more effort onto attendance because it affects our overtime dramatically all the time. So what we've done is it's up to $100 a month, but it's based on the total attendance of the bargaining unit. So if 50% of them had a perfect attendance, they're going to get $50 a month instead of the 100. If 100% of everybody comes to work, they'll get $100 a month. So that, that's well covered by the overtime that we've been expending to cover these absences and that. So we're hoping that we see a turnaround, and we've worked very hard with ATU to try to work that out amongst them as well. Committees that I talked about earlier, with Labor Committee has worked very hard to get this contract done, and we're going to continue with those efforts throughout the rest of the contract. We're just going to not stop and try to do it again. With this delay, we will be back at the table very shortly again for the next contract, because it's not that far around the corner. So, absences, we've been very stingy on our absence policy. We have lightened it up a little this time. We have allowed for emergencies, which we have never done before. So if they are in an auto accident or anything like that, there is an option for them to provide the documentation that it actually happened, and they will not get the attendance and occurrence for it. And so we're trying to be more, not lenient, but more human, because things do happen outside their control out there. And then the union also came to us and has a proposal for some supplemental insurance options out there. HART does offer quite a few of those, but the ATU had some others that they offer to their bargaining units around the country, and asked that we allow them to be able to bring anything that we don't cover in as well, and we did agree to that. The dollars, there's two scenarios here, and the contract is very clear that the wage increases and the retro pay is only after the ratification of the referendum. So you see here, 2020, without the sales tax referendum, that will be the 3% bonus that I talked to you earlier about. And the benefits comes in the 529 for a total of $1,241,000 for this 2020. 2021, without sales tax wage increases, those are the step increases that are in the current contract. They continue to go along even though it's expired. And that total for that next year, for 2021, would be $4,587,000. And then 2021 with the sales tax, those 9 months of retro pay will kick in, and the new wages would kick in. So that's why you see the big hit there on the wage increases there. So that total with the referendum comes in at $13,257,397. And then the authorization for the resolution is authorized to pass, adopt, and ratify the labor contract with the Amalgamated Union 1593, ATU, and authorizing the chairperson of the Hillsborough Transit Authority Board of Directors and the interim chief executive officer to execute the contract with ATU 1593 for the period of October 1, 2018 to September 30th of 2021. Any questions?
Any questions? Commissioner Overman, you recognize.
Thank you. It's good to see that we're getting this moving forward. On page, your slide 8, 106, whichever it is, it talks about the value of the financial investment. There's some caveat there regarding the wage increases. Shift differential and retroactive payments are dependent on the Florida Supreme Court upholding the all for transportation surtax. In the event that that is not upheld and we go to referendum, there's a change in the percentage allocation that's been proposed from 45% to 5%. If we're going to referendum, how does that impact this contract?
Well, if the first referendum is turned down, we would go back to the negotiating table within 10 days of the denial of the referendum. So we would have to go back and renegotiate and start again, because we don't know about the second possibility of the referendum coming through yet. So we already have it in our agreement that if the state, the Supreme Court turns it down, we will be back at the table within 10 days to start renegotiating.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Smith, you recognize.
You said the next contract will have to be begun pretty soon. When is that?
Well, it'll expire in 2021, and we notoriously start about 6 to 8 months going into that. So that's not very far away after we get going. So
in the county's last budget, we were able to give all our employees a $15 minimum wage. That's becoming pretty standard as a living wage. I know the city's done that as well. I would like to know, I know we're in kind of a rock and a hard place right now, and we've got an agreement, and I'll be supporting that, but I would like to have staff bring back what it would take for us in the next contract to bring everybody up to $15 an hour. I see a couple of categories where we're not there yet, and so that would be a goal of mine.
yes, ma'am. Can't do it.
All right, is there any other discussion? What's your pleasure?
I'll move approval of the contract.
There's a motion and a second to move the approval of the contract. See no further discussion. All those in favor, let me know by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, likewise. Motion is adopted. Okay. We have to go back to the appointment. We did not appoint an alternate to the MPO nor an alternate to the Transportation Disadvantage Coordinating Board. We had Mr. Harden serve as a member to the MPO. We need an alternate to the MPO. Is there a nomination for an alternate? Is there a nomination for alternate to the MPO? Going once?
I'll take an alternate. I'll do it.
Okay, Ms. Smith has volunteered. Any objection? Any objection?
No objection.
No objection? I'm sorry, Williams. What I said? Smith? Okay, Smith, Williams. Okay, Ms. Williams is agreed. Is there any objection for Ms. Williams serving alternate MPO?
No objection.
Okay. Then we need an alternate to the Transportation Disadvantage Coordinating Board. Is there a nomination for an alternate? Nomination for an alternate? Going once? Okay, Councilman Schuster said he would do it. So that's the nominations, okay? All right, we're going to move back to the interim executive director's report, and I think we're going to have to leave. So I'm going to turn the meeting back over to the vice chair. Consent agenda. I'm sorry, I never got that.
Consent agenda is next. Okay. All right, thank you. All right, consent agenda, Operations and Safety Committee met on February 17th. The resolution numbers are R2020-03-06, approval of third extension of the memorandum of understanding between Hillsborough Transit Authority and Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority for collaboration opportunities.
Move to approve.
All that vote aye?
Aye.
No? Very good, we'll approve the resolution. Second one is Strategic Planning and External Relations Committee. Resolution number R2020-03-07.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any questions, discussion? All that agree, say aye. Aye. Thank you. All that agree, say, all that disagree, no? Very good. Okay, we will move to the chair's report at this time. Thank you.
Good morning, board members. This interim CEO report is aligned with our key areas of focus: customer experience, community value, employee success, and financial performance. On September 23rd, 2019, this board adopted the fiscal year 2020 success outcomes and the HART Organizational Performance Scorecard. At your seats, you'll find the Success Plan 2020, Building on a Culture of Excellence. In the board packets under Section 15, Status Reports, page 253 is the fiscal year 2020 scorecard and a comprehensive performance overview of HART's organizational achievements measured against the metrics during the first quarter 2020, October 2019 through December 2019. Under customer experience, our Flamingo beta testing is well underway, and fair testings began on February 5th, 2020. The preliminary beta tests to date show sales of $3,394, with 141 customers registering their cards. No major systems issues were reported, and the projects team are working diligently on refining the system and hardware to ensure consistent customer experience. We will have an extensive marketing campaign beginning the second week of May on the Go Live launch for Flamingo. Under our community value, HART hosted a small business education forum on Saturday, February 8th, 2020 on 21st Street. 2 sessions, one at 9 a.m. and one at 11 a.m. to educate and assist our DBEs and SBEs to register as vendors with HART. We're pleased to report that 15 new businesses registered as new vendors with the HART system, and Ms. Ironetta Dennis from the Director of Supplier Diversity for the Central Florida Expressway Authority also attended. For Black History Month, we told you last month that we had a wrapped bus connecting our schools while driving education. This bus featured the names of schools in Hillsborough County that are named after African Americans. This effort was supported by the Hillsborough County School Board in coordinating with many local public schools, including the STEM, Magnet, and Leadership Academies, and over 16,000 students participated in this activity. We visited a total of 9 schools in Hillsborough County. This bus will be wrapped for 1 year. HART participated in Hillsborough County's Love Hillsborough event on February 13th, 2020. This was a sustainability day at Chilora Park. HART hosted an informational table, shared information about the benefits of our CNG compressed natural gas program, and displayed the Earth-wrapped bus. And this event was hosted by Commissioner Kemp and Hillsborough County. We hosted a table last Friday for the 14th Annual United Negro College Fund Tampa Bay Black History Month Luncheon, and board members Ms. Williams and Commissioner Kemp joined HART staff at this event. This year, HART, as we did in 2018, will assist MacDill Air Force Base with the Air Fest scheduled for Saturday, March 28th. Could you change the slide, please? Scheduled for March 28th, 2020 and Sunday, March 29th. Our Route 360 LX is scheduled for a modified schedule and 5 additional buses on Saturday and 7 additional buses on Saturday and 5 additional buses on Sunday. We will operate from MacDill Air Force Base to Britton Plaza every 15 minutes, and from MacDill Air Force Base to downtown, the Marion Street Transfer Center, every 30 minutes. Under Employee Success, March is Transit Worker Appreciation Month. On March 18th, we'll have food trucks at our E-Board 21st facility and MTC, and also an evening food truck at 21st Street, and we appreciate all of our transit workers for the great work that they do. HART will also celebrate Women's History Month during March as we tell her story and highlight women at HART who are in non-traditional roles. As you know, women make up 36% of the workforce at HART, and we're very proud of all of our 827 employees at the present time. An update on Tallahassee, our House Bill 951 and Senate Bill 416 received unanimous support in the House Transportation and Infrastructure Subcommittees and the House Judiciary Appropriations Subcommittee. It also passed with unanimous support from the Senate Criminal Justice Committee. We thank the bus operators from across the state and our ATU state representatives who were present, who gave compelling speeches, and thank you letters have been sent to the local and the international ATU for their participation in this initiative. Our appropriations request for $600 for our Cat AVL upgrades to the radio system is still making its rounds, and we've asked our local elected officials to call our delegation and advocate on HART's behalf for this initiative. Next slide, please. Our HART annual rodeo scheduled in Manatee County. Plans have been finalized, and this will take place on Sunday, March 8th, 2020. We've not received any word that it has been canceled. Next slide, please. This board approved a Sunrail tour in last March, and we're happy to report, last May rather, we're happy to report that this Sunrail tour will take place on March 5th, 2020 for HART and MPO board members for a Sunrail ride followed by a presentation at Links and by the Sunrail staff. HART will provide a non-revenue generating vehicle for this venture for those who would desire to carpool. Minutes will be taken on the presentation and shared with all board members. On March 17th, we received notice, on May 17th, we received notice of the Federal Transit Administration's $130 million fiscal year 2020 funds for the purchase of or lease of low or no emission vehicles, as well as related equipment or facilities. HART is in the process of preparing for this grant. Again, this year, we've applied for the last 2 years and did not receive it, but we're applying again this year. On February 14th, the IOC telephonically participated in the Florida Public Transportation Association's new member orientation. On Wednesday, February 19th, Congressman Ross Spano and his field representative visited HART to meet with staff to discuss facts about HART, and Congressman Spano offered his support for HART's initiatives and any grant applications that we would submit. We did have a streetcar accident that was reported at the Safety Committee for streetcar 429. The car was traveling southbound when a private tour bus made a left turn in the path of the oncoming streetcar, causing a major collision. There was extensive damage to the streetcar. The initial estimated damage is $85,000. Efforts are underway to transport this streetcar back to Gramaco for teardown and analysis. The at-fault party, Voice Charters, Inc., has provided their full cooperation to this point in resolving the matter, and our motorman who is back to work on light duty. We thank you for approving the ATU contract. That was ratified this morning. We also extended congratulations to our board member, Ms. Williams, for her selection to the Exceptional Women Awardees Foundation cohort of women leaders for the year 2020. She will be in a year's program and acquire skills for her profession, her career, and serve as a mentor and role model for other women. I call your attention to the recommendations that Carlton Fields made to HART. That was on page 25 of their report on the whistleblower complaint, and I wanted to apprise you that HART is prepared to act upon those recommendations, and we're implementing revisions to documents, updating information for distribution to staff, hosting additional trainings and workshops, and continue to have our open communication and transparency. In your packet, I specifically call attention to pages 68 and 69. The first recommendation dealt primarily with our procurement policies and contract modifications. The HART staff will continue to review and make recommendations, and we've indicated our schedule. The Finance and Procurement Department will have a first draft no later than 60 days from today. The internal staff review will be 10 days of the draft document. The internal legal staff has a target date of within 5 days. Then there will be board general counsel review. We will have a HART board workshop with the HART board so that you can see what we're doing, have your input, especially for those things regarding scopes of services that you've requested to have input in. Then we will have another general counsel review, followed by our first public hearing on our policy provision, and then a second public hearing before it comes to the board. We've also had a procurement 101 section where employees review the current procurement so that they can also have input. The travel policy has been reviewed and training was conducted back in November. And so any changes to the P-card policy, those things are being completed and should be done within the next 30 days so that everyone will know what's going on. And in my report, I've listed the primary responsible teams, including the interim CEO, procurement, finance, and legal. The second item regarding the recommendations from Carlton Fields related to the placement in your agendas of our sole source contracts. And you will note we've already implemented that today. If you look at the report from the interim CEO on page 76, our two sole source awards are for Sendler Elevator Company and Presidio, which it relates to our IT Cisco products. And so it will now be going forward, instead of being in the back of the agenda, it will be right near the front of the agenda, and we will call that to your attention at every board meeting when there are sole source deviations. The third related to classifications and salaries, and so what we've done is that we already had a compensation study that had began in November 2009 for our non-bargaining employees. Employees received an advisory update on January 22nd regarding the status of that compensation study, and we're advised that now we're in the final phase, and once the compensation study is completed and reported out, HART will evaluate the study and will endeavor to make appropriate changes consistent with our budget and fiscal condition. I also want to highlight that the Human Resources team is dedicated to immediately updating our employee handbook for 2020 and will provide clarity regarding new information to include policies for any deviations for recruiting, hiring, or compensation. Our response to recommendation number 4 related to clarity for solicitation and acceptance of gifts and other items or support in the form of donations from businesses for our businesses, community, and marketing events. Legal had already done prepared a legal opinion back in September of 2019. Our policy is very clear that HART prohibited solicitation and donations from current vendors and known potential vendors, and we will simply update and reinforce the recommendation and the legal opinion that we did back in September. The 5th and 6th recommendations related to our employee handbook and making available to all employees, not just the handbook, but also it's on our dashboard and our SharePoint and website as well. Training has already begun for 2020 this month on ethics and steps for reporting, and several sessions have already been completed, and we have annual training on these things already in place. We sent out employee advisories on November the 4th as well as February 7, 2020, encouraging employees to review the whistleblower policy as well as the policies which prohibit slandering, spreading rumor or innuendo in the workplace. As the interim CEO, I met with very small groups of staff internally to go over the recommendations and to let them know their role in moving forward and what their participation and requirements would be for the various things that HART has to do to comply with these recommendations from Carlton Fields. And we've continued to emphasize in the HART policy manual, as well as our handbook, the whistleblower statutes, and the fact that no employee at HART will be retaliated against for participating in an investigation or reporting violation of policies and procedures, which is part of the duty to report violations in our HART policies at the present time. So I just want to bring that to your attention. Also, as part of my report, in response to public comment, Mr. Eric Anderson came to the Operations and Safety Committee meeting and expressed concerns. His first concern was that paratransit operators were not a part of the Transit Operator Protection Bill. They are, in fact, part of that bill. The second was his concern that the paratransit operators did not have protective barriers. The maintenance team is working with the vendor Arrow Global to custom fit barriers specifically for our flex fans. As you know, all the shields have to be custom fit. His third concern related to the fact that about de-escalation training for our motormen and mechanics. They have, in fact, received that training. The sessions were held October 2019 and December 2019. The other inquiry that was still hanging out there came from October when our board member, Ms. Williams, inquired about signage on HART buses reminding patrons to be seated or to hold the handrail while the bus was in motion. We do not have any specific language regarding remaining seated or holding the handrail because we cannot make customers sit on the bus if they choose to stand for whatever reason. But we do have signage regarding no loud music, no food, and signage cautioning them when they step to the rear of the bus to watch your step. One other item included in my report is a change of service, and we have Chris Cochran who's going to come and talk about the 3 changes of service that we have to bring to the board.
Good morning, board members. Real quickly here, we have a few minor service changes for March 22nd that will be implemented this next service change. The first one is a bus consolidation along Route 1 in which there will be 20 stops that we will be kind of either removing or moving around in order to help create appropriate distances between bus stops with the idea of improving running times, which will help improve on-time performance. We spent a great deal of time vetting this through the agency, through all of the departments, with safety, with operations, planning, of course. And we also went out and did a few days of surveys for customers at some particular stops that we knew might be of issue. We dove deep into the data to identify that these stops were not those that were being used by wheelchair patrons as well. And our hope is that we can establish a baseline here with this opportunity and see how we might be able to scale this throughout the agency and other bus routes to be able to help improve our on-time performance. So we will be implementing this starting on March 22nd. The next couple service changes, we have the route 275LX and 60LX will be rerouted leaving the airport. We now serve bus stops, we'll now be serving bus stops along Spruce and West Shore before getting back on 275. This was a request that we got from patrons. There was a great deal of, when we first put the 275 LX and 60LX in there, we actually removed some stops along that route with some previous changes. So this brings back some stops along West Shore, and our expectation is that this will make our customers a lot more happy and provide some good access between West Shore and downtown. The other change is on the Route 31, our South County route, currently along Gibsonton Drive. It goes all the way into the Walmart there. It creates a significant amount of safety hazards. The initial intent of this, we had it was the bus stop area within the Walmart parking lot initially was created for 30-foot buses back many years ago. We now have 40-foot buses. We have a great deal of conflict in there and potentially cars backing out, a lot of other tractor trailers coming in and out to serve the Walmart. So some new bus bays were created on Gibsonton Drive that are fully ADA accessible. There is a There is also a brand-new signalized crossing walk as well up there to provide access directly to the Walmart with some brand-new sidewalks and some good accessibility as well. To add to note to that, this also provides some great facilities on both sides, whatever direction the bus drivers are going on this route, either the Murphy or the Circle K that you can see on the map there, to be able to use facilities at those bus stops for bus drivers. Do we have any questions?
Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Thank you. No, I don't have questions, but I just want to say these are all improvements I think that were needed, and I was a little surprised at the service as it was, rather than the service as it will be when I really looked at it. It didn't seem to make sense and wasn't the most efficient service that we could have. So I'm pleased with the improvements. Is there a motion needed for this? Or
No, Commissioner,
okay.
it's just strictly an informational item.
Okay,
So.
great.
Director Harden.
Yes, thank you. I think these are good examples of incremental improvements that'll, that you should look at scaling to the whole system, and so good job. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I have.
And to that point, I just would make sure that you go back to the riders and sort of say, report back. Just because it's done, you need to publicize it, whether it's on the website or on that route, so that they know that, you're listening, you're accommodating some of the concerns that have been raised.
Understood.
Good point.
And one other informational item, all staff travel has been postponed unless it's essential and crucial to the business of HART. And the staff will be meeting today at 2:00 regarding our draft epidemic flu pandemic plan, and it's consistent with the plan from the Metro DC system, and that will include a task force. So we'll report back to you at the Safety Committee meeting on where we are with our plan.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Carolyn House Stewart? Okay, well, we will move on to our approval of action items.
Is the presentation finished?
Yes.
Yeah. I just, and I guess I could do this under new business, but I really think it's incumbent upon us that we have at least a 10-minute discussion every meeting as regards to finances and where we are in the future, because I'm extremely concerned about our status, and it hasn't been built into our agenda in the past, and I think it needs to be in the future for always, even though, but it seems like we're particularly in a stressed time right now, so I'm concerned that we have not been spending time at our meetings doing that.
Okay. And Ms. Cindy Sieglich, our interim CFO is here, and there is a written report in the packet, and so any questions you have today, she'll be happy to answer them, but we will put that on the agenda going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, we'll move to our approval of action items. R2020-03-09, a resolution to approve naming streetcar number 163 Bernie Carr in memory of Joan Genuine. And Director Mechanic.
Yes, I was asked by the streetcar board to make this recommendation. The board itself voted to recommend to this board that we name the Bernie Carr Jones Carr in memory of Joan Genuine, who was, as many of you know, instrumental in various historic preservation efforts in Tampa and Hillsborough County. More directly relevant to this board is Joan was a founding member of the Tampa and his Ybor City Street Railway Society, sort of a tongue twister, and was instrumental in encouraging the city administration and HART to establish our current streetcar system. Joan was also one of the original members of the THS board. So with that, I am offering the recommendation of the THS board to name the Bernie Carr, which is now owned by HART, by the way. So.
Okay, we have a motion. Second by Commissioner Kemp and Director Harden. Any discussion? All that vote aye?
Aye.
Nay? Motion is so passed. We are going to move to presentations. This one is about federal legislative review, and Lisa Barkovic and Carl Collin and I will provide an overview. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Rich Gold with Holland and Knight. It'll be Lisa and I providing the update this morning. You wanna do the clicking? I'm going to start giving a general overview, and Lisa will review on HART-specific items. Obviously, a lot of focus this week and last week on coronavirus in D.C. The Senate will likely take up at the end of this week the coronavirus supplemental. Senator McConnell is working with Speaker Pelosi to figure out a total amount of funding. It will largely end up, or likely end up, between $5 and $7 billion in funding, amending the president's request for $2.5 billion to provide funding for emergency response and prevention activities. So as things become more clear, because we haven't seen the draft legislation yet, we will let you all know and obviously keep staff posted on that. Obviously, in addition to that, we are starting our federal appropriations season for the year with cabinet secretaries up on the Hill starting last week and through the month of March testifying on the president's budget submission. We expect the House to try to complete all of its appropriations measures by Memorial Day, including the transportation appropriations bill. Since we are operating under a 2-year budget agreement, transportation should be very well funded this year, and we're working with staff currently on all the FY 21 grants that will be part of your agenda for the year that Lisa will talk more about in a minute. In addition to transportation appropriations funding, transportation reauthorization is up and as it expires this year, September 30th. Therefore, the House and the Senate have started to move forward on reauthorization. Senate Environment Committee marked up its version of the reauthorization bill last fall. It is a 5-year reauthorization. We're awaiting a decision from the leadership in the House and the Senate on how to fund the bill going forward. As your board knows, we haven't increased the gas tax since 1992, so there's some discussion around indexing the gas tax to provide funding for the bill, but the gas tax, obviously, at this point with electric vehicles and alternative vehicles is only a partial solution to funding the bill going forward. So other potential solutions like vehicle miles traveled and other things other states have tried out will also be on the board. We're not expecting the reauthorization bill will pass through the House and Senate this year, so we'll likely do an extension probably in either July or September to take the current law through at least another 9 to 12 months to give Congress more time in 2021 to finish up its work. With that, let me hand over to Lisa for HART items.
So the other thing, so Rich just went through the transportation reauthorization process that's ongoing. The other thing that's we've talked about too in Washington and have been talking to your congressional delegation about is that there have been several infrastructure plan proposals. So House Democratic leadership at the end of January rolled out a $760 billion infrastructure plan where its sole focus, not sole focus, there's also broadband and technology, but a big emphasis on transportation, including $105 billion for transit. There are some new programs in there that we're keeping an eye on that I think, with working with the delegation, has some good emphasis for HART, including some new demonstration funding for programs to help, for example, veterans and the elderly and to get to their destinations. And so that might be a good opportunity that we'll keep talking to the delegation about. HART has been very successful with receiving federal grants at the federal level. Just a quick snapshot, in the last year, HART has received a grant from FTA on transportation-oriented development, CNG bus replacement, the $4.3 million, and of course, just recently, the $100,000 to do human trafficking campaign. So HART staff is doing a great job in helping us to advocate at the federal level for these federal monies. Lots of grants that are open right now and opportunities, everything from the BUILD grant, which is the $1 billion highly competitive grant program, To a couple of other unknown grants, Department of Homeland Security has a transit security grant program that HART is eligible for because Tampa is a UASI, an urban area security initiative. So HART is eligible to apply for that funding. As was mentioned in the interim CEO's report, HART is applying for a low to no emission bus grant. We actually feel very good about HART's position for this because while not successful last year, we got a debrief from the FTA, and the FTA had told us that the application had been rated as highly recommended last time. It's just, you know, a very competitive program, and they have to be diverse in the grant awards as they distribute them throughout the country. Coming soon, this is kind of some new exciting stuff. There is Department of Defense will have a grant program, $50 million. Wide a range of projects will be eligible, but it's looking at helping communities that are hosts to military installations, so like Tampa is to MacDill. And so transportation will be a qualifying activity. We don't know some of the details yet, but we've obviously been talking to the Department of Defense about this upcoming opportunity. Accelerating innovative mobility, this is the focus of Secretary Chow. And then the last one is complete trip deployment. And these are all new programs that federal government is looking to apply for. So that's just kind of a quick snapshot of what's happening in Washington. Any questions?
Director Shanahan, is the only one that we're applying for on that list of transportation grants that are open the low to no emission bus grants? So we've made a strategic decision to not apply to any of the other pools.
Good morning. For the record, Cindy Siglich, interim CFO. And Lisa can maybe speak to our decision with respect to the low-no versus the bus and bus facilities. This year, we are going to focus our efforts on the low-no grant. As Lisa mentioned, we were rated highly recommended last year. We have decided to take kind of an innovative approach with this particular grant this year. And we are going to partner with 2 OEMs, both Gillig and Proterra, in our application. So we think that will give us somewhat of an innovative edge. And we're also looking to partner with TECO to help us with our local match. And then I'll let Lisa talk about the bus and bus facility decision.
On the low and no, on the one you just mentioned, what is the dollar value associated with that?
Last year, I don't believe more than $3 million was given to any one recipient. So we have a scalability in our project that would bring us right under that $3 million threshold. We are going to ask for between 4 and 10 buses.
So on the bus-to-bus facilities grant award, all of the Department of Transportation, one of their criteria is geographic diversity. And so in terms of placing resources, most likely HART probably would not be a highly recommended project since you just received a $4.3 million grant award. If you look at the grant awards from that were just announced from FY 2019, there were only 2 in the state of Florida. HART being one, and then Broward County being the second grant award. So when you look at the geographic diversity that the Secretary has to consider in granting awards, I think that that's just one area where I think we would not be competitive in since we just were successful. And then with the Build Grant Award, I mean, obviously, if it's a highly competitive program. While there's $1 billion available, this administration has been putting 50% of its funding set aside to urban areas and then also to rural areas. So then you have to kind of look at it from the perspective that Tampa would probably just be, in that 500 in the urban area of grant awards, and then that's nationwide.
I have to say, we're the 3rd largest state in the country. This is the fastest growing county, either in the country or in the top 5. Florida matters to this administration.
Yeah.
And so I'm a believer in, you might not get it every time, but if you sort of, and there's $2 billion pools here that we're sort of assuming we wouldn't get it based on, I know your good advice and counsel, but I overlay that with sort of the politics of the place. And the growth that's happening here. I mean, we're a rural/urban county. We're like the perfect example of all these areas that they look at. And so, I don't know, I would be a lot more aggressive if I were, if I were looking at these. You have till May 18th, and if there's real money there, I think, I mean, we didn't get it the first time, you might get it the second time, but I think laying the groundwork on educating the diversity within the population base in Hillsborough. I mean, Hillsborough is like a pool that represents, the last time I looked at it, the population base of the country on a diversity almost 1-to-1. I mean, it's quite an amazing, sort of pool to study. And I think that, Florida, we always sort of assume all these other states are going to get all this money and, they have to they have to spread it out across America. Well, whether you like him or not, the president is now a resident of Florida, and he cares about it, as does anybody else in politics nationally, from my perspective, that's a national person. So that's a lot of money to just sort of decide we're not going to apply, and we're only going to go to the thing that we almost got the last time. That's almost the lowest pool available.
That's helpful feedback, and we'll work with staff to follow up.
We'll revisit that decision. Thank you.
And there's just a quick typo. I know you mentioned 2 billion. The bus and bus facilities only has about 450 million available. So that's a typo that was caught too late after it got included in the board packet. So I apologize for that.
Still $500 million.
Commissioner Gibb.
Thanks for the presentation. I'd like to second Ms. Shanahan's comments, and then additionally, I think, highlight one of them, which is that Hillsborough County is significantly a rural county. A good bit of the service area of HART is serving rural areas. So, and it's actually, so I think we should hone our thoughts in lobbying towards those facts. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Kemp.
Thank you. I'm just curious what Broward got theirs for and how much?
Broward got their grant award for 17 million, and it was for facility replacement.
Okay.
Are there
Which
any?
we have a high need for, facility replacements. I mean,
Because well, it's just, in going along, that's a much more significant amount. Of course, I guess part of this too is predicated on local resources, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So all of the grant programs require at least a 20% match, local match.
Although 20% is maybe something that's achievable, but that, that's more, a far more significant amount. Obviously, it's like 3 times what we got for our bus facility, or buses.
And when we did the debrief with the Federal Transit Administration on the low-no grant opportunity from last year, one of the things, it was highly competitive. Only $80 million was available compared to the $130 million this year. One of the things that the FTA told us was when it came down to giving that one grant award to the state of Florida, there was a tiebreaker. And the tiebreaker was on what the local share was. And so the local share that was the winning one was up between 40 to 50%. And that's why that grant award went to, I believe it was Lynx last year. So there's something to kind of keep in mind when you're talking about competitiveness in programs and how the Department of Transportation is also looking at the local share that's provided.
I wish we could have all our commissioners here, because at least now when we don't have the tax, it'd be good to see if there might be some resources at the county so that we could have made that match available to bring down more dollars for things that are needed for our citizens here.
So may I recommend that we take this feedback and come back and circle back to see if there are any changes at this point? The discussion we're having here, there's
Yes,
feedback from Director Shanahan, feedback from several members of the board.
Yes, staff will revisit this decision and we'll get back with you at that
Okay,
next
thank
meeting.
you.
Has there been a motion made? I think there was, right?
this was just
No?
a presentation.
It's a presentation.
Okay, got it. Sorry.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. CSX Corridor evaluation history is not going to be covered at this time. Ms. Alden was not able to make it, so we will push to another board meeting. Number 12, HART Board Committee reports. They are listed in your packet. HART and reports from HART board representatives. They are also included. Thank you. They are also included. Status reports are included as well. Thank you. We'll go to a public input. Thank you so much. Okay. Stephen Simon. Stephen Simon. I'll move on to Marion Guizdadala. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Microphone is.
Thank you. So my name is Marion Guizdala, and my wife Mary Schock and I, who you'll hear from in a little bit, are both considered experts in the psychosocial and cultural aspects of disability, as well as policy making concerning disability issue. In fact, Mary is an adjunct on the faculty at USF in the School of Social Work, teaching graduate courses concerning those issues. I don't think any of you would fail to recognize language which would be considered racism. But many times I think people overlook terminology which reflects an attitude which we in the disability community call ableism. Such comments as referring to us as handicapped people, or referring to us as that community, or in other terms which separate us from the mainstream. And we hear about training instructors the other day on a paratransit vehicle, as we look at the top-down aspect of this. On a paratransit vehicle, I got on and a trainer was training the operator and told the operator, you need to ask him if he needs you to buckle his seatbelt for him because he is visually impaired. Now, I have a grandson who's 5 years old, and he knows how to snap his seatbelt. When we got to my destination and the driver, the trainer said, pull up close to the curb. He is visually impaired. I don't know if I could see if he'd pull up to the curb or not, but I think that's just a safety issue. We get on vehicles which aren't making their announcements, and there's trainers there, and the trainer's talking to the trainee, but never teaches them how to make their announcements. Today, my wife and I came to this meeting. The route was on detour, and no announcement was made to notify us that we were on detour. That's a requirement of the Americans with Disabilities. Yet it consistently doesn't happen. It didn't happen today, it didn't happen Wednesday when I was on the same route. And we need to make this effective for everyone, including people who are disabled, because as blind people, we are, by the definition of our blindness, unable to drive and therefore are transit dependent. And the attitude seems to be very dismissive within HART. And it's evident by some of the language that we hear as we're being talked about here in this room.
Thank you.
Controversy.
Ms. Mary Schott. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Kipp. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We've had the same complaint several times with regards to, not since you've been here, but with regards to the announcement systems on the buses in particular. they've been here, so I'm just wondering about what we have that tracks that, or in terms of repair of those systems when they're not working. Is there anyone that can speak to that, or how can we follow up on this?
Good morning, Ruthie Reyes-Burkhardt, Deputy Chief of Transportation. Yes, any complaints that we receive regarding the announcements not working on a particular route are registered in our C-Click Fix app, and staff takes that back to maintenance to see if it's a technical error, is it an equipment error. We have taken, if you will, advice and suggestions from our constituents in the past, including Mr. Wisdala, and we've added where there were stops that were not announced, or areas where there were large areas or distance where there wasn't any information. When there is a detour, however, there is not an announcement that puts out, well, that's the requirement of the operator, and we certainly will follow back up to that intent. This is a long-term detour, so we can look at if we can, when there are longer than a week or so, if we can add something to our recorded system that would put that announcement out there. But we will go back to our operators to ensure that they're announcing those detours as folks are boarding. It is important information to have.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to really make sure of that, since it's been a somewhat ongoing issue. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
And will we take up the issue with the training and the relationship between the driver and the attendee? We'll take that up.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Mary Shock, and to follow up, under the ADA, the responsibility does fall back on the driver, not the automated systems or anything else, but I just wanted you to know that. I am an adjunct professor, and I did bring my book, so I think it would be a great idea for this board, as well as the staff at HART, to read this book. This is a fantastic book regarding individuals with disabilities. Also, I am here not because I wanted to be. I haven't been here for a while because I own and operate my own business. However, I have had some safety issues that I'm very concerned with. My last conversation with the manager was, could you please give me the email addresses so I can write a narrative and send it to the HART board? I was then told to look on the website. I said, I'm really sorry, but your website is very cumbersome to use, whether you're cited or not. And would you please look it up while we're on the phone? The next thing I got was, oh, I can't find it, so I'll have to get back with you. I said, great, if you could email me a link, here's my email address. I greatly appreciate you emailing me this link so I can contact the HART Board of Directors to write them the narrative regarding these safety issues. I'm here because I did not get that information. So, very concerned. I will also state that if we're going to bring up another referendum, I will vote for it because I know that we need more money for better services. However, my family and friends that hear about me in a deserted parking lot for an hour, over an hour, waiting for a ride, and I'm not able to get in touch with anyone because for some reason my call is not going to dispatch after hours and I have no clue what is going on, because I have been dropped from the manifest before. Before I go on, I must say this. Greg Bracken is my savior, because there's many times I have been stranded at night due to HART Plus or Yellow Cab, and I have had to contact Greg on his personal cell phone to get a ride home, and he has been there all along. This man is exemplary when it comes to customer service and customer care. Ivan, I don't know Ivan's last name, he cares about the patrons as well, and Kemley Green. Otherwise, the culture of HART appears to the patrons that they do not care. When I had this safety issue, I talked to the interim director's assistant, and I said, I would like to speak with her. Now that I know that she's in risk management, I'm a little bit more disturbed about it. I said, this was a safety issue, and I want to speak to her directly to let her know what is going on out here with individuals being at places in the dark, either too early or too late, and not being contacted by HART, that their bus or their van is going to be over an hour late to pick them up, and they're going to be out in the dark. So anyway, those are my comments.
Thank you for your.
I hope that I can get your emails and write these narratives out so you know the real stories of what is going on.
Thank you, Ms. Trott. And also, thank you for acknowledging HART employees that have gone beyond the call of duty to make sure you were cared for. We often like to hear things that are working well, as well as those that are not working well. So as a part of the Operations and Safety Committee, we will take your feedback and work through those specifically, and with staff as well. Thank you. Les Joen? Oh, I'm Commissioner.
I just want to reassure, I'm assuming it's reassured that we will immediately get her the emails, addresses for everyone.
Yes,
The
if
staff
she-
was,
Excuse me, yes, if she will send it to Danielle Arthur or Lena Pettit, we will make sure that whatever she sends will get directly to our HART board members.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I have no comment at this time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Henry Spell?
Let's see how we do this. Let's see how I get to say everything I'm gonna say without getting in trouble and throwing out a heart. All right. This, need this. All right. So first thing first. My name is Henry Spells. How you guys doing? I'm back again, and of course, now. I'm glad to hear the news about how the drivers got the contract. Well, you know, I stand for I'm sided with the drivers. Yeah, I don't care what I don't care about no other patrons. I'm sided with the drivers, especially after what happened to Mr. Dunn and Mr. Profit. Yeah. All right, so it's a good thing y'all gave the drivers the contract. And then of course, you know, with this money that that HART's supposed to be getting, and a friend of mine, okay, who I'm in a transit group with, happened to say that HART's getting Proteras, also known as potato buses. You guys are missing one point. Mr. Bracken told me that HART is contracted through Gillig also, which, you know, I'm starting to find Gillig to be played out. I'm sorry. Gillig's supposed to be played out. But y'all need to try to, you know, follow suit with Miami and Central County links about getting New Flyer. Almost every other state and city has New Flyer. HART doesn't have no Protero, no New Flyers, no Nabbies, no nothing. But I guarantee you, if HART was to look into having this money and New Flyers, just imagine what can happen to those extended hour routes, the routes that go down to 12 o'clock at night. That basically being said, articulated buses, especially for the airports, the airport runners, 275, 60, 32, the 35, well, not the 35, but articulated buses, I don't know how many people will get to ride them, but just look at everything. Now, another thing, according to the bus driver safety, now like I said last time, I stand with the drivers, and if anybody wants to put their hands on a bus driver, they're going to have to answer to me and my umbrella. I mean, every day, a bunch of people get on buses, and I don't know what experience, good or bad, but all I got to tell you, everybody's supposed to ride with respect or don't ride at all. Now I can guarantee you, yesterday I was on a bus, and somebody obviously didn't know where he was going, and next thing you know, he wanted to try to get up and try to start something with me. Thank God I ain't had no umbrella, because if I did,
Mr.
I would
Spells?
have had. What?
Mr. Spells, thank you for your comments. They are duly noted. Thank you.
Word.
Are there any others, Lena? Okay, thank you. Okay, is there any old business? New business? Monthly information reports are included. If nothing else, we'll adjourn at this time. Thank you.